There is a moment in life that many people reach, but very few understand. It is not dramatic. It does not announce itself loudly. It does not arrive with chaos. It arrives quietly. You are still functioning. You are still moving. You are still doing what needs to be done. But inside, something feels disconnected. You cannot explain it clearly. You cannot point to one single reason. And that is exactly what makes it disturbing. You feel lost. Not lost in the world. Lost within yourself. This feeling is often misunderstood. People assume it means weakness. They assume it means confusion. They assume it means failure. But in reality, feeling lost often appears when a person is growing faster inside than their life is allowing outside. Most people never feel lost because they never stop long enough to notice misalignment. They move from one role to another, one responsibility to the next, one expectation to the next. Movement hides emptiness. Noise hides questions. But when movement slows and noise fades, the truth becomes impossible to ignore. The hidden origin of this feeling. Feeling lost does not come from lack of ability. It comes from loss of internal reference. For a long time, your direction came from external structures. School told you what mattered. Work told you what success looked like. Society told you what to chase. These structures gave clarity, but they were never permanent. At some point, your inner values begin to change. What once motivated you starts to feel hollow. What once felt meaningful starts to feel repetitive. But your life continues on the old path. And that gap between who you are becoming and how you are living creates the feeling of being lost. Why the mind feels overwhelmed. When this gap appears, the mind tries to compensate. It thinks harder, analyzes more, searches for answers. But the mind cannot solve a problem that belongs to alignment. This is why thinking does not help. You are not confused because you lack information. You are confused because your life is no longer synchronized with your inner reality. The mind feels noisy because it is trying to force clarity where patience is required. The fear beneath the confusion. At its core, feeling lost is not about direction. It is about fear. Fear of letting go. Fear of disappointing others. Fear of admitting that the life you built no longer fits who you are. Letting go feels dangerous because identity feels like safety. If you release the old version of yourself, there is a moment where nothing replaces it yet. And humans are deeply uncomfortable with that emptiness. So most people escape. They distract themselves. They numb themselves. They rush into new goals. But avoidance only stretches the pain. Why modern life makes this worse. Modern life does not allow transitions. It demands performance. You are expected to always know, always decide, always move forward. There is no space for not knowing. But growth requires pauses. Recalibration requires silence. When silence is absent, you lose the ability to hear yourself. And when you cannot hear yourself, you lose direction. You are not lost. You are between identities. This is the part few people understand. You are not lost because you have no future. You are lost because your past identity has expired and your future identity has not fully formed yet. This in-between space is uncomfortable. There are no clear labels, no clear answers, no applause. But this space is where honesty is born. If you rush through it, you carry old patterns into a new life. If you stay with it, you emerge aligned. The role of stillness. Stillness is not inactivity. It is presence without distraction. In stillness, your nervous system calms. Your mind slows. Your intuition becomes audible. This is why boredom feels threatening. Because boredom removes escape. But boredom is often the doorway to self-understanding. Why direction returns quietly. Direction does not arrive as a revelation. It arrives as relief. You stop forcing yourself. You stop pretending. You stop chasing what feels wrong. Small truths start to appear. Not what excites others, what energizes you. Not what looks impressive, what feels honest. These small truths accumulate, and slowly, confusion fades. Not because you found all the answers, but because you stopped fighting the process. The transformation that happens. After this phase, you do not become louder. You become clearer. You choose more carefully. You say no more easily. You listen to discomfort sooner. Feeling lost becomes a signal, not a crisis. It tells you when alignment is slipping. And now you know how to respond. What this experience ultimately teaches. It teaches you that certainty is temporary, that growth is non-linear, that inner truth matters more than external approval. You learn that the goal was never to avoid feeling lost. The goal was to learn how to listen when it appears. Feeling lost is not the end of direction. It is the beginning of honesty. It means your inner world is asking for attention. And attention, when given patiently, always leads somewhere meaningful. As this inner transition deepens, something subtle begins to change in the way time feels. Days may seem slower. Moments feel heavier. You become more aware of how you spend your energy. This is not because life became more difficult. It is because you stopped numbing yourself. When you feel lost, your sensitivity increases. You notice what drains you. You notice what feels artificial. You notice how often you act out of habit instead of intention. This awareness can feel uncomfortable, sometimes even painful. Because once you see misalignment, you cannot unsee it. Why productivity starts to feel empty. Many people notice something strange during this phase. They are still productive, but productivity no longer satisfies them. Achievements feel flat. Progress feels mechanical. This happens because productivity without alignment feels like effort without meaning. For a long time, achievement gave you identity. Now identity is being questioned. This is not regression. It is evolution. You are no longer willing to trade your inner truth for external validation. The emotional confusion that appears. Feeling lost is not only mental, it is emotional. You may feel irritated for no clear reason. You may feel detached from conversations you once enjoyed. You may feel sadness without a story attached to it. This emotional confusion is not random. It is the emotional system reacting to misalignment. Emotions are signals. When ignored, they grow louder. Why forcing positivity makes it worse. One of the biggest mistakes people make is trying to stay positive during this phase. They suppress discomfort. They tell themselves they should be grateful. They minimize their own experience. But positivity without honesty creates inner conflict. You cannot heal what you refuse to acknowledge. Feeling lost requires acceptance, not correction. The difference between reflection and rumination. It is important to clarify something here. Reflection is healthy. Rumination is not. Reflection is curious. Rumination is repetitive. When you feel lost, your task is not to endlessly analyze your past. It is to observe your present. Notice how your body reacts to situations. Notice what creates tension. Notice what brings calm. Your body often knows before your mind does. Why comparison becomes more painful. During this phase, comparison intensifies the discomfort. Seeing others appear certain makes you feel behind. But appearances are misleading. Many people who seem confident are simply disconnected from themselves. They are not lost because they never questioned. You did. The courage to stay without answers. One of the hardest skills to develop is staying present without clarity. The mind wants closure. It wants decisions. It wants certainty. But this phase asks for patience. It asks you to trust that understanding comes after listening. Not everything must be solved immediately. The role of solitude. Solitude becomes important here. Not isolation. Solitude. Time alone without distraction. Time to hear your own thoughts. This does not mean abandoning relationships. It means temporarily reducing noise. Solitude creates internal space, what slowly begins to emerge. As you stop forcing direction, patterns begin to appear. You notice recurring discomforts. You notice recurring desires. You notice what consistently feels wrong. These patterns are not instructions. They are indicators. They point toward alignment. Why direction feels fragile at first. When direction begins to return, it feels subtle. It does not feel like confidence. It feels like quiet certainty. This certainty is fragile because it is new. Protect it. Do not expose it too early. Do not seek approval for it. Let it grow internally. The shift in decision-making decisions start to change. You no longer ask, what will impress others? You ask, what will respect my energy? This shift is small but powerful. It marks the beginning of self-trust. Why? This phase changes you permanently. Once you go through this process consciously, you cannot return to unconscious living. You become sensitive to misalignment. You adjust sooner. You listen faster. Feeling lost no longer scares you. It informs you. The deeper meaning of being lost at its core. Feeling lost is not about confusion. It is about honesty. Honesty with yourself. Honesty about what no longer fits. Honesty about who you are becoming. This honesty is uncomfortable, but it is liberating, and it leads somewhere real. As this inner process unfolds, you begin to notice that your relationship with control starts to change. For a long time, control felt necessary. Plans, certainty, clear outcomes. Control made you feel safe. But safety is not the same as alignment. When you feel lost, control weakens. And this can feel terrifying. Because control gave structure to a life that no longer felt true. Letting go of control does not mean becoming careless. It means accepting that not everything meaningful can be planned. Why letting go feels like losing yourself. Many people fear this phase because they believe letting go means losing identity. But identity built on certainty is fragile. True identity is flexible. It adapts. It evolves. It responds. Feeling lost strips away rigid definitions. It removes labels. And without labels, you are forced to experience yourself directly. This direct experience can feel raw. The role of fear in this transition. Fear does not mean something is wrong. Fear means something important is changing. Your nervous system reacts because it is leaving familiar territory. But growth always requires discomfort. Not dramatic discomfort. Quiet discomfort. The kind that asks for patience. Why you start questioning your past choices. During this phase, you may revisit past decisions. You may question why you chose certain paths, why you stayed in certain situations, why you ignored certain feelings. This is not regret. It is integration. You are not judging your past self. You are understanding it. Your past self did the best it could with the awareness it had. Now awareness has expanded. The difference between meaning and fulfillment. Meaning comes from alignment. Fulfillment comes from expression. When you feel lost, you may have fulfillment without meaning, or meaning without fulfillment. This imbalance creates inner tension. The process you are in is about reconnecting the two. Why external advice feels empty now. Advice that once helped now feels shallow. Motivational phrases do not land. Generic solutions feel disconnected. This is not cynicism. It is discernment. You are no longer satisfied with borrowed meaning. You are looking for something that fits you. The slow return of intuition. As mental noise decreases, intuition becomes clearer. Intuition is not loud. It does not argue. It does not explain. It simply points. You may not trust it at first. That is normal. Trust is built through small actions. Why small decisions matter more than big ones. During this phase, small decisions shape your future more than big ones. How you spend your mornings, what you allow into your mind, who you give your energy to. These choices recalibrate your inner compass. Big decisions come later, the moment you stop feeling rushed. One day you notice something subtle. You no longer feel rushed to figure it out. The urgency dissolves. This does not mean clarity has arrived. It means trust has. Trust in the process. Trust in yourself. Why this trust is transformative. Self-trust changes everything. You stop seeking permission. You stop chasing validation. You stop forcing timelines. You move when it feels right. You pause when it feels necessary. This rhythm is personal and powerful. The quiet confidence that emerges. Confidence after being lost is different. It is not loud. It does not need proof. It comes from alignment. You know when something is wrong, and you act. How this changes your relationship with life. Life stops feeling like something to conquer. It becomes something to listen to. Challenges still exist, but they no longer define you. You respond instead of react. The deeper understanding. You realize something important. You were never meant to always know. You were meant to be aware. Awareness adapts. Certainty resists. Feeling lost taught you awareness. And awareness is stronger than any plan. As awareness deepens, you begin to notice that your relationship with success also changes. Success used to mean progress that could be measured. Money, status, recognition, results. These markers once gave you certainty. They told you where you stood. But now, they feel incomplete. This does not mean success lost its value. It means its definition is evolving. When old definitions stop working, for a long time, you measured your worth through outcomes. What you achieved, what others saw, what could be explained. But during this phase, outcomes feel disconnected from meaning. You may reach goals and feel nothing, or you may feel fulfilled without visible progress. This contradiction creates confusion. But it is not a problem. It is a transition. You are moving from external validation to internal coherence. Why your energy feels different. You may notice fluctuations in energy. Some days you feel clear. Other days you feel heavy. This is not inconsistency. It is recalibration. Your system is learning what deserves your energy and what does not. You are becoming more selective. The subtle grief that appears. Another emotion often emerges here. Grief. Not dramatic grief. Quiet grief. Grief for old dreams that no longer resonate. Grief for versions of yourself that will not return. This grief is necessary. You cannot fully step into something new while clinging to what has ended. Allowing this grief creates emotional space. Why you feel disconnected from noise. Noise becomes exhausting. Unnecessary conversations, endless opinions, constant stimulation. Your tolerance decreases. This is not arrogance. It is sensitivity. Your system is protecting clarity. The shift from doing to being. Earlier in life, doing defined you. Productivity gave identity. Now being becomes more important. How you feel while doing something matters more than doing it quickly. This shift is subtle but transformative. Why slowing down is not regression. Many people fear slowing down. They associate it with failure. But slowing down during recalibration prevents long-term collapse. It allows integration. You are not falling behind. You are aligning. The emerging sense of integrity. Integrity begins to matter deeply. You feel discomfort when acting against yourself. This discomfort is guidance. It tells you when to stop, when to adjust, when to walk away. Why this phase cannot be rushed. This process does not respond to pressure. The more you push, the more resistance you feel. Clarity unfolds through patience. Think of it as internal architecture. Foundations take time. The moment you realize you are not lost anymore. There is no clear moment of arrival. One day you simply notice. You are calmer. You trust yourself more. You make decisions with less noise. You still do not have all the answers, but you no longer need them. What replaces the feeling of being lost? What replaces it is not certainty. It is orientation, a quiet sense of direction. You know what does not fit, and that is enough to move forward. The strength that comes from this phase. This phase builds resilience. You learn to sit with discomfort. You learn to listen deeply. You learn to move without guarantees. This strength is invisible, but it is unshakable. How this changes your future challenges. Future uncertainty no longer terrifies you. You have been here before. You know how to listen. You know how to wait. You know how to realign. The core truth. Feeling lost was never a mistake. It was an initiation, an invitation to stop living on autopilot and start living consciously. And once you cross this threshold, life never feels the same again. There is one final realization that quietly settles in. You were never lost in life. You were lost from yourself. And that realization changes everything. For a long time, you followed paths that made sense to others. Paths that looked safe. Paths that sounded right. Paths that earned approval. But inside, something remained unresolved. Feeling lost was not a mistake. It was a message asking you to slow down, to stop running, to listen. This phase removed what was not yours. Old expectations, borrowed dreams, unnecessary pressure. What remained was silence. And inside that silence, clarity began to grow. Not loud clarity, not dramatic clarity. Quiet clarity. You learned that you do not need to have everything figured out. You only need to know what feels true and what no longer fits. From that awareness, direction naturally appears. Life does not become perfect, but it becomes aligned. And alignment creates strength. So if you feel lost right now, understand this. You are not broken. You are not behind. You are not failing. You are becoming conscious. And that is where real growth begins. If this message resonated with you, and if you want to keep improving your English while reflecting on life, mindset, and inner strength, subscribe to English Rise. We grow quietly. We rise intentionally. See you in the next story.